Let's finish session 67 talking about the archetypes. Very good introduction to it. Let's begin. So far, this session has been a lot about psychic attack and, most interestingly, the ways in which psychic attacks are directed towards us. I think that was the most fascinating part of this whole session as regards to the psychic attack, probably even more than the introduction of the archetypes, in a way, because I know a lot of people love the archetypes and the tarot and all of this, but yeah, there is, I guess the whole session just being about psychic attack just really interested me in how these aspects of ourselves are there to generate these negative views of reality for us, so we can continue on in our polarization. Everything serves each other, and that's one thing that we'll discuss here as we continue to learn about psychic attack before we move into the last couple of questions, which are about the archetypical mind. And then there's a little mention of the tarot. This is what starts the conversation, but I don't think we go into a deep analysis until later on. However, that's what we have today. The only introduction that I would say as a refresher is that, like I said, we have been talking about psychic attacks because of Carla, who was under attack by a fifth density negative entity. And Don was trying to minimize this attack and trying to understand how it happens, what they can do, and so on. So we're going to see Don asking more questions about it here. And the last couple of questions that we covered was Don asking if this attack was offered or given to Don and Jim as well. To which Ra explained what we know already, that Carla is the weak link, saying that Don was offered some of this negativity, but he didn't accept it, and Jim was attacking his emotions, but he became stronger and stronger with this. And while Carla was obviously the strongest of them all in mind and spirit, she was very weak physically, so they were attacking her physically to the point of wanting to end her life, as we know already. So that's the conversation that they had so far. So let's go finish this session, shall we? We're going to go into the first question that I have here, so we can start, and this is where we left off. Question 24, Don says, is it within the first distortion to tell me why the instrument experienced so many physical distortions during the new times of its incarnation? Here we see a little bit of a misunderstanding from the conversation between Don and Ra. And I'm with Don here because Ra says this is correct. And Don says, is that in that case, can you answer me as to why the instrument experienced so much during its early years? And Ra says, we were affirming the correctness of your assumption that such answers would be breaking the way of confusion. It is not appropriate for such answers to be laid out as a table spread for dinner. It is appropriate that the complexes of opportunity involved be contemplated. So first of all, Don actually, I think, asked the right question when he said, is it within the first distortion? Meaning, is it within free will that you can answer me this? And Ra says, yeah. So Don is like, okay, so tell me. And Ra says, no, we were saying that it is not within free will to answer your question, because that would be breaking the law of confusion, basically. Way or law, that's why it's capitalized in the text. Way is a synonym for law. Why? Because Ra says there's only one law, and you know which law that is. So they rather call them ways, but sometimes it's interchangeable because Don would also use the word law, so as if the raw material wasn't messy enough in terms of vocabulary for the common mind to understand it, then we have synonyms like this, which is, what's the difference between law of confusion and way of confusion? Nothing. They're interchangeable. So again, it is not within the free will of Don, Carla, and Jim, mostly Carla, or Don as well. Everybody, actually. We shouldn't be exposing what are the reasons why people incarnated here. Like, you want to know why your mom was this way, or why your siblings, or whatever. All of this, you can begin to discern for yourself, and that is within free will, because it is you who is discerning this. It's not somebody else. Now, this lends to a little bit of a analysis and some further learning from out of this view that it is not appropriate, like Ross says, for such answers to be laid out as a table spread for dinner. Just like we try sometimes to understand why certain things are happening, and then we go to somebody who we deem wise and we want them to answer it for us and to say, explain to me, how do I achieve this? How do I do this? And a good teacher will always tell you that it's only within you to find out what it is, because they see you as, or they should see you as, God trying to figure out its way back to unity. So it is not appropriate for anybody to tell you, oh yes, this is the way. You see, that is I think that's negative, and you're breaking the law of Confucian into a perfectly capable human being to discern their reality. I can see how this can go into, Gabe, but what about those who can't discern reality and they have mental disorders and all of that? That does not invalidate men. Socially, by the system in which we live, these mental disorders disable them. It's only a sort of concession that we have for saying, yes, they're not capable of performing slave work. They're not easily bendable because they have their own way. You see, but as a human or as pure consciousness, they are perfectly capable of navigating their experience. You see, another fallacy is that, we should follow this way into understanding who we are. The way of yoga, the way of Christianity, the way of Buddhism, the way of the law of one. This is all nonsense. None of this is needed for the entity to have its experience. And you see, it's our penchant to extrapolate the human identity into soul identity, spirit identity, creator identity, that we find stumbling blocks in our way to try to understand that we humans are simply vessels for the one and only self that exists. And because of the configuration of this vessel, we actually have different experiences. How about that? So the we that I just mentioned is we, the vessels, channel energy in infinite forms due to the energy centers, configurations, again, that produce different experiences, that produce different identities, apparent identities, illusory identities, for the purpose of experience. The whole goal of this is to realize who you are. You are the self. If you wake up, you become lucid in the dream reveals itself as a sort of projection of the mind, not real. Not that it's not real in the sense that it's not experienceable, that's the whole purpose of it, but that it's not real in the materialistic view of the world. So this is the basis of it. Knowing yourself is the whole purpose of creation. So nobody can help you to know yourself. It's like asking somebody, am I alive? That you should check that. Anybody arbitrarily can tell you, yes, you seem alive. Okay, but does that help you? Do you feel more alive because somebody else said it, or because you can actually see it within yourself? Of course, you check and you say, I'm alive. So these are the subtleties that need to be explored within the self when we have such questions like Don, asking about the nature of why Carla had so many events and so on in her life, sickness, illnesses, so on. And that is the way. You have to find out for yourself. So such answers are not appropriate to be laid out as a table spread for dinner. It is appropriate that the complexes of opportunity involved be contemplated, meaning your experience needs to be contemplated. You see, how you process catalyst, that's what needs to be contemplated. How are you processing this catalyst? Go deeper. Don't fall into the reflex or reaction of the catalyst. Catalyst will come and you will react in a similar way. This may be, with ecstasy or with depression, sadness, whatever it is. You're reacting to neutral catalysts. Why are you reacting that way? Don't give yourself into the common reaction, because that will just make it cycle again. Explore it. That doesn't mean repress it, but study the reaction, study the reflex in which you're involved. So really good point there, I think. So Don continues asking, then there is no other service that we can at this time offer that fifth density entity of the Orion group, who is so constantly with us. As I see it now, there is nothing that we can do for him from your point of view. Is this correct? Ra says, this is correct. There is great humor in your attempt to be of polarized service to the opposite polarity. There is a natural difficulty in doing so, since what you consider service is considered by this entity non-service. As you send this entity love and light and wish it well, it loses its polarity and needs to regroup. Thus, it would not consider your service as such. Very important here. There's more to say by Ra, but first, so Don, this is the situation. Don is wanting to know if there's anything that they can do to continue giving service to this entity, the negative entity. This is the negative entity that's attacking all of them. And Don wants to know, is there anything that we can do? Now Ra says, well, that it is correct that there's nothing else that we can do, or that they can do. Because I explained this in the last video, I think, which is the futility of trying to be of help to somebody who doesn't need our help, and at the same time trying to offer our help. Trying to offer our help for somebody who is not asking it, and then trying to be of service in a way that we don't want to because somebody else is requesting it. So there's a futility there, because either you surrender to the will of the other and do what they want, or you give a service that is not asked for. So that's why Ra says there is great humor in your attempt to be of polarized service to the opposite polarity. Some people don't find it humorous. Actually, I remember Scott Mantelker saying, that's not funny. To me, it's funny. It's I can see the humor in it. You're trying to be of service to somebody who doesn't want you, and you can't give them what they want. So I think it's funny. And the way they explain it too, or they phrase it, is that you're trying to be of polarized service to the opposite polarity. You're trying to give positive to the negative. No, they want more negative to become stronger in their magnet or in their attraction. But you see, positive and negative need each other, and so they work together. Thanks to that relationship is that we have an electromagnetic field. So there you have it. There's a natural difficulty in doing so, since what you consider service is considered by this entity non-service. So, hey, let me help you by giving you love and light and wishing you well, that you are, you find what you need and so on. And the entity is like, no, but I want you to terminate the contact. Don't wish me that, just give me what I want. and that is non-service to them. So they have to recoil. As you send this entity love and light and wish it well, it loses its polarity and needs to regroup, needs to recoil, needs to go away. Thus, it would not consider your service as such. Of course, that is no service to them. That is that's not appropriate. Just like, it's no service for us that they would paint images of negative things that we don't want to do. Yet they're offering it to us, and we're saying, dude, no thank you. Stop it. So yeah, it's a funny interaction. This only happens in 3rd and 4th density, by the way. Something that I've been talking about somewhat vehemently recently, because I see that there is so much confusion and so much misdirection in terms of this 4th density, which I admit it's part of this process in which we are waking up. We're sort of like waking up like in a concentration camp. You let all of these go, and you have no guidance for them. You just let them go out into the world. And they have been in a concentration camp for years. I don't know, imagine 10, 20 years, or even your whole life. 30, 40 years, however old you are. And, you come out of the world and you say, wow, this is the world. Of course, I'm referring to the metaphysical world, the astral world, and astral projection, and remote viewing, Kundalini awakening, and dreams, and all of this. So we are just like coming out of a concentration camp and becoming dazzled by this new light that we're seeing. And so there's a lot of confusion there. One of the first one is that there is a battle, and I am the forces of light. The forces of light shall prevail, because we are one, and those who are negative must be obliterated. They must vanish. The light will win. The shadows will have to dissipate. But you see, this is all well and good because it's 4th density awakening. You see, and people will naturally gravitate towards that. All right? What do we do about it? Well, nothing. Things are going to be that way. This is the inevitable battle of 4th density, as Ra explains it. The battle between light and darkness, which is futile from the higher perspective. And now, lucky are we that we have such a knowledge, such wisdom given to us, not only by Ra, but by so many other traditions that know that this battle is futile, and you should never see anybody as separate from you. That's what 4th density is still doing. They see them separate. I mean, they actually, that's not right. They see them as one, but they want to help them. And they don't understand in the highest wisdom that they should be let alone. Just leave them alone and let them do their thing. They're necessary to this whole creation. You see, so this is a very subtle battle that happens in 4th density. Now, what's the highest wisdom? That, yes, we just let him be. And this is exactly what Ra is trying to tell Don. I mean, you can try and offer them what they want, but you will be killing, Carla or any of you. Fortunately, Don died in a very, I don't want to say questionable, but in a very mysterious way. And it seems to be connected to this channeling. But the point is that you can't give them what they want, and you can't do what they want either. You see? So it's futile. So what do? Just send them love and light, which simply means I acknowledge you. Thank you for what you do. I mean, I won't do what you're saying. I won't become that, and I won't accept the image that you're giving me of myself. But thank you. It's a good reflection. So yeah, there's much to talk about here. Anyhow, let's go into the next part of this answer. What Ross says, on the other hand, if you allowed it to be of service by removing this instrument from your midst, you might perhaps perceive this as not being of service. You have here a balanced and polarized view of the Creator. Two services offered, mutually rejected, and in a state of equilibrium in which free will is preserved, and each allowed to go upon its own path of experiencing the one infinite Creator. So this is it's a same explanation. You see that the state of equilibrium in between these two polarities, the highly polarized positive ones who is aware of the negativity of the other one and just simply offering their beingness. This is who I am. That which you say I am not. But thank you. I appreciate your opinion and your view of this vehicle. And the other one seeing, well, yes, I can manipulate you, so I'll just go on my own way. And that's what happens. So you can see the Creator. You see, this is the highest knowledge. You see, you have here a balanced and polarized view of the Creator, which is the two polarities working together to preserve free will. And each allowed to go upon its own path of experiencing the one infinite Creator. You continue to be who you are, and I continue to be who I am. There's no reason for me to convince you to come to the positive side, or for you to convince me to go to the negative side. So why do we bother? It's okay. Thank you for showing me who you are, and hopefully you can appreciate me too. That's it. You can't? Well, that's on you. And this is a dialogue that can happen between humans too, right? And it does preserve this harmony between people. That's okay. You can be who you are. Nobody's questioning you. I have no ideals. This is me speaking. I have no ideals in this world. I don't think anything should be one way or the other. I see the corruption that stems out of ideals. I can see it. Sometimes it disguises itself as a benevolent root of righteousness and justice and beauty. But the devil has many faces, right? Temptation has many faces, and your own personality has many temptations. So as you follow the path of righteousness or idealism, and you end up in having to defend that which you believe to be true. You don't defend anything because you are admitting that there is an attack to you. Well, how can anybody attack you if you're not defending? So you don't defend. You simply are. And so this not idealism of mine. This is my view. This is not law of one or raw material. It's just my view. And I think it's congruent with what Rob would say. I mean, nobody can tell you what's right. Yeah. And nobody can tell you, thou shalt not, blah, blah, blah. All of this is, it's a free ground. It's a sandbox for us to do what we want. And so when somebody creates rules, pay attention to those rules. Beware of those rules, because they're not leading you to a positive path of openness and allowance and accepting. People confuse this with you. You have no discernment. Your sense of judgment is lacking. You're becoming too feminine, I was called recently, because of non-duality. And this is the perception. Let me clarify this, because some people may... you see, people think that non-dual perspectives are permissive, passive, and just non-judgmental, whatnot. Like being weak is the word that they describe it. Now, this is a misconception, because non-duality is coming from the perception that everything is one, whereas the people who are passive and that they claim, all these attributes are 4-density feminine expressions, meaning they're very passive. They think everything is love, everything is one, we shouldn't do anything. And that's an escape mechanism, a coping mechanism, spiritual bypass. But that's a misconception. And I'm actually glad I was made aware of that recently, because I needed to clarify it. Non-duality, or law of one, basically the same thing, is just a state of recognizing the relationship between everything. That is not being permissive. You have your own discernment. You see, you never lose that. But for the masculine, aggressive people, which are very abundant right now, will try to tell you that your discernment is wrong. Why? Because they have an ideal. Whoop. There you go. Pay attention to ideals. Their ideal is that you should be such and such a way. Because, we have to go into this battle and we have to warn people about the negative and blah, blah, blah. You see? So, don't confuse that. It's my biggest advice. Do not confuse what is non-dual or law of one-ish perspective of life with the 4D imbalance feminine aspect of humanity. It's a very important point. So I hope that makes sense. Let's go to question 27. Oops, move too fast. Question 27. Don says, come on, move. There you go. Thank you. In closing that part of the discussion, I would just say that if there is anything that we can do that is within our ability, and I understand that there are many things such as the ones that you just mentioned that are not within our ability, that we could do to this particular entity. If you would in the future communicate requests to us, we will at least consider them, because we would like to serve in every respect. Is this agreeable to you? Lovely done. Ross says, we perceive that we have not been able to clarify your service versus its desire for service. Negative entity's desire. You need, in our humble opinion, to look at the humor of this situation and relinquish your desire to serve where no service is requested. The magnet will attract or repel. Glory in the strength of your polarization and allow others of opposite polarity to similarly do so. Seeing the great humor of this polarity and its complications in view of the unification in sixth density of these two paths. This answer, I'm going to frame it somewhere. I don't know. It's beautiful. You see, Don is still asking, what can we do? Let's do something. Let's do something for this entity, because inside Don, what he wants is to get rid of the entity. You see? So if we can give them something, the options, I'm sure this entity would love it, is to have some sort of sacrifice, say, or to become enslaved by the will of this entity. You can see that Don, in a way, there are some theories about Don's death. I won't get into them. But you can see that Don simply wanted to give whatever it was out of him to aid in the well-being of Carla and Jim. Especially Carla, because Carla was the one being attacked and he was afraid. Rightfully so. This is the price that we pay for having this information here on Earth. And our gratitude is still very reachable to the entity known by the vibratory complex sound vibration, Don Elkins. So, our gratitude to Don. But you can see that Don wanted to find a way in which we can just give this entity what it wants and leave us alone. And Ra is very strict in the way that they basically say, we perceive that we have not been able to clarify your service versus its desire for service. Meaning, I don't think we have made ourselves clear into what you want to give and what they want you to give. And they say, I just love it. I love them. They say, you need, in our humble opinion, to look at the humor of the situation and relinquish your desire to serve where no service is requested. This is applicable everywhere in the creation whenever there is a little bit of ignorance in our way of understanding the relationship that exists. You see, the relationship between these two polarities is needed, and that necessity is for them to exist as they are. So you either become more negatively polarized or depolarize your positivity by doing, I don't know, say the negative entity said, yeah, start sacrificing animals, in our yard, we'll leave you alone. We won't attack Carla. Make a pact with us. But you're enslaving them. Even if they said, do this, do that, whatever it is. It's always negative stuff, of course. And we will make a deal. We'll make a pact. We won't bother you anymore. Or at least not to this extent. But they're still bothering you because they're still telling you what to do. And you as a positive being don't want to do all of this stuff. But you're doing it because you want to preserve something else. So you're becoming a little bit too controlling. And that is not positive. It just becomes a mess. So please just look at the humor in the situation of you trying to be of service when nobody is wanting you to serve them. The magnet will attract or repel. Yes, you will either attract or repel. That's fine. You will attract the same polarity to you, or enhance that polarity, if you will, and you will repel always the negative ones, right? In this case, glory in the strength of your polarization. Yeah, expand that and allow others of opposite polarity to similarly do so. They rejoice in their polarization. Seeing the great humor of this polarity and its complications in view of the unification and sixth density of these two paths. See, this is the invitation to see not that you have to do something, but you have to be who you are. It's not about action. It's about being. It's not about doing, it's about being. And so, if you can view the unification and sixth density of these two paths, then you can see that there is there's nothing to do about it. All you have to do is allow it to be. See, you're seen from the view of sixth density, non-duality, law of one. This is actually the lessons of sixth density is non-duality and law of one, which is the prerequisite for seventh density, dissolution of the self. So yes, if you can see it this way, then you won't be bothered. Internally and externally. Simple as that. So this is a great invitation for all of us. And should be pondered, should be contemplated, I think. You don't have to, but it is possible. Question 28. Don says, thank you very much. I have a statement here that I will quickly read and have you comment on the accuracy or inaccuracy. In general, the archetypical mind is a representation of facets of the one infinite creator. All right, so caveats, not a caveat, a preface here. Let's call it a preface. This is going to be a long statement of Don, and I'm going to read it. Then we're going to go over it because this starts the conversation of the archetypical mind. So let's read it. Don's statement, by the way, it's pretty accurate, or at least it's a very good interpretation of the archetypes, even though it's not used in the tarot specifically or strictly here. But Don says, the father archetype corresponds to the male or positive aspect of electromagnetic energy and is active, creative, and radiant, and is our local sun. The mother archetype corresponds to the female or negative aspect of electromagnetic energy and is receptive or magnetic, as is our earth, as it receives the sun's rays and brings forth life via third density fertility. The prodigal son or the fool archetype corresponds to every entity who seems to have strayed from unity and seeks to return to the one infinite creator. The devil archetype represents the illusion of the material world and the appearance of evil, but is more accurately the provider of catalysts for the growth of each entity within the third density illusion. The magician, saint, healer, or adept corresponds to the higher self, and because of the balance within its energy centers, pierces the illusion to contact intelligent infinity, and thereby demonstrates mastery of the catalyst of third density. The archetype of death symbolizes the transition of an entity from the yellow ray body to the green ray body, either temporarily between incarnations or more permanently at harvest. Each archetype presents an aspect of the one infinite creation to teach the individual mind-body-spirit complex according to the calling or the electromagnetic configuration of mind of the entity. Teaching is done via the intuition, with proper seeking or mind configuration. The power of will uses the spirit as a shuttle to contact the appropriate archetypical aspect necessary for the teach learning. In the same way of the other informers of intuition are contacted. They are hierarchical and proceed from the entity's own subconscious mind or group or planetary mind to guides to higher self, to archetypical mind, to cosmic mind or intelligent infinity. Each is contacted by the spirit serving as a shuttle according to the harmonized electromagnetic configuration of the seeker's mind and the information sought. Will you please comment on the accuracy of these observations and correct any errors or fill in any omissions? Now, let's just read Ra's answer here. They say the entity has been using transfer energy for most of the session due to its depleted physical levels. We shall begin this rather complex answer, which is interesting, but do not expect to finish it. Those portions which we do not respond to, those portions which we do not respond to, we ask that you re-question us upon our working in your future. So they're going to give a very short answer to this. It's a very long question or statement rather, and I want to go through Dunn's. So let's go through Dunn's together. And then we will go to the next question, which gives the answer that Ra wants to give, or their analysis. Okay. So the father archetype corresponds to the male or positive aspect of electromagnetic energy and is active, creative, and radiant, and is our local sun. Okay, so first distinction, this is not the tarot. The tarot doesn't have the father archetype. This seems to be a more Jungian archetypical structure. I'm not sure. To be honest, I never studied archetypes in anything, not even the law of one, to be fair. I only know what makes sense to me. And lo and behold, the archetypical mind or the tarot is, because there's the 7 archetypes for the mind, body, and the spirit. These are all a way of studying. It is not the way of studying. Again, just because Ra gave it to us doesn't mean that it's the way of studying it. So it's a complete way of studying the self, just like astrology is another way of studying the self. It has 12 houses and the zodiacs and zodiac signs and the whole thing. It's a fascinating study. I particularly am not interested. I do work with a girl who is just fantastic in all of this. She only speaks Spanish, so sorry, can't recommend yet. Maybe in the future. But she does study the astrology based on the law of one, and of course tarot and archetypical mind. She's just brilliant. I've mentioned her before. But my point is that these are ways of study, and I have gone through my own way of studying the self, which is just pure consciousness. That's what I teach. This is the method that I use. I don't think this is all needed. Archetypical mind and so on. Again, it's a way of studying the fractalized or the fragmented self, but not the way of studying the self. The self is just one. And if you can start from oneness, I feel that is less complicated. I'm a very practical person. I love studying, as you can see. I love exploring. But when I have a question, I want the answer as efficient as possible. I don't want so many explanations and ways of understanding it. I just want, the most efficient way. And I'm not referring to the magical pill. I'm referring to the most efficient way. And I found that. So I actually study the archetypical mind through this understanding of unity, through this understanding of consciousness only, the consciousness only model. And it's just my way of doing it. So this is the real caveat of the session. I will be explaining the archetypical mind and this whole tarot thing through the consciousness only model. It'll be my biggest influence. But I do enjoy the other interpretations that people make. So just bear that in mind. If you want some other type of study, then you have to find that on your own. Maybe somebody else is doing it. You have to check. I'm also not interested in reading so many things, and because my focus is not in becoming a sort of teacher or master of the tarot. So I'm not interested in studying further such websites, such videos, channels that talk about all of this. Truly not interested. Just like people recommend me check all these UFO sightings and check the history of Lemuria and check the different dimensions that Matthias De Stefano talks about and so on. I have nothing against them, but I'm just not interested because they seem to be repetitive to me. And other than just saying, hey, it's the same information, just spoken in a different way, I cannot get into the study of it because it just becomes superfluous for me. So again, just stating that, again, just to invite you to find a way in which things make sense to you. I will invite you for an efficient way, whatever it is that works for you, and then work towards that from that point. Okay, that caveat was longer than I expected. All right, so the father archetype corresponds to the male or positive aspect of electromagnetic energy. See, Don is using the male aspect of metaphysics. That's all there is. Yes, there is an impression going out. That is the sun. And it's beautifully laid out. I think it's very poetic and beautifully matching with reality. And they say the mother archetype corresponds to the female or negative aspect of electromagnetic energy and is receptive or magnetic. This is all metaphysics, you see. Just like the earth receives the sun rays and it brings forth life via third density fertility. I think that's beautiful. I mean, I would say that maybe for the study of the human, we can say that, but you see the earth brings forth life in matter first, or energy as it is configured, because all the difference between the sun rays and earth all being energy is just a configuration that the earth made from its core all the way outward into humans and animals and plants and all of this beautiful ecosystem. But you see, fertility is really the localization of energy called planet Earth thriving into this changing, beautiful illusion of projection, this holographic projection of the sun, which is really what it is. So that is the mother archetype, or the female, which takes light and molds it to its own designs, to its own whims, whatever it wants to do. The prodigal son or the fool archetype corresponds to every entity who seems to have strayed from unity and seeks to return to the one infinite creator. Let's use the fool or prodigal son. You see, there's the story of the prodigal son who leaves the house and wastes all the money and comes back. See, that's the story of the prodigal son. It's exactly the fool. The fool comes out and says, whoa, I'm separate. I'm here to experience this reality, which is all an illusion. All it's seen is itself. So in the end, the fool realizes that all it has to do is come back home. That's all it wanted. All he wanted was to return home. And that is what Don says, the return to the one infinite creator. That straight from unity is the whole shebang of 7 densities. Exploring all densities and saying, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I have an identity, I'm a social memory complex, I am a social memory complex totality beingness, and so on. Eventually it's just like, I am. That's I am that I am. The devil archetype represents the illusion, the material world, and the appearance of evil, but is more accurately the provider of catalysts for the growth of each entity within the 3rd density illusion. The devil archetype. It does represent the illusion of separation. Now, why is the appearance of evil? Because evil is simply the temptation to the separate self to become more separate. That is the illusion. You see, in the wheel of life, the great wheel of life in Buddhism, there is Mara, the devil, the evil creature, which is holding samsara, the wheel of death and rebirth. So Mara is just looking at everything and saying, yes, I represent the illusion. But you see, this is not a true devil, at least not in Buddhism. It is just representing the illusion, Maya. See? I don't know if there's a connection with the word Maya and Mara. It's just one of the words that they have for the devil that's holding the wheel. But that's all that is shown. The devil is just there providing the illusion of reality for the separate self to become involved. And so this involvement makes it spin around these 6 realms of being, from the Deva realms all the way to the deepest hells. And the sensation of separation is really what creates this whole progress. And as long as you think you're progressing somewhere, you're the fool running around in samsara. I'm not saying that being a fool is not fun. That's the whole purpose of the creation, you see? And so even Ra is a fool in progress for unity. If Ra was unity, we would not be able to talk to them, because they need to appear as something, an apparent self. And they call themselves Ra. So that is the devil archetype. The magician, saint, healer, or adept corresponds to the higher self, and because of the balance within its energy center, pierces the illusion to contact intelligent infinity and thereby demonstrates mastery of the catalyst of 3rd density. I think this is compressing a little bit the archetypes. The magician is, if memory serves, is the matrix of the mind. Yeah, and this will be explored further. But this is it's compressing a little bit, and it's only going into, yes, that one who is an adept is the one who is piercing the illusion. That is true. Demonstrates the mastery of catalyst of 3rd density. Yes, it showcases the movement and manipulation, probably not the right word, but you know what I mean, of catalyst, the usage of catalyst for its own evolution. The archetype of death symbolizes the transition of an entity from the yellow ray body to the green ray body, either temporarily between incarnations or more permanently and harvest. I think the archetype of death may apply also to other densities and not only to 3rd density, but I may be wrong there. Because we do have the veil is what creates the majority of the archetypes. See? Because before the veil, I think there were only 9 archetypes. Now we have 22. That's all because of the veil, and the veil only exists in 3rd density. So I may be wrong there, but yes, let's just say that death does play a role in transition or transformation for yellow ray. And yeah, Don is kind of putting it linearly here, implying that there needs to be some reincarnation, and It says more permanently at harvest. That wouldn't be permanent. That would be just a transition or transformation. It's my only correction to Don's statement here. And it's my own correction. It's not that it's the right one. Just me being me, understanding what I understand. Each archetype presents an aspect of the one infinite creation. That would be one infinite creator, rather. But it's the same thing in the end. To teach the individual mind-body-spirit complex according to the calling or the electromagnetic configuration of mind of the entity. That is true. Each archetype presents, yes, an aspect of the illusory self to the one infinite creator. To teach this illusory self the calling into a proper electromagnetic configuration, which is the dissolution of the electromagnetic configuration. Teaching is done via the intuition with proper seeking or mind configuration. The power of will uses the spirit as a shuttle to contact the appropriate archetypical aspect necessary for the teach learning. This is something that Ra will correct, so I won't spend much time here. The intuition and spirit as a shuttle and the mind configuration and so on. So the last part I would say here in this paragraph is when they say, in the same way each of the other informers of intuition are contacted. They are hierarchical and proceed from the entity's own subconscious mind to group or planetary mind to guides to higher self, to archetypical mind to cosmic mind or intelligent infinity. Each is contacted by the spirit serving as shuttle according to the harmonized electromagnetic configuration of the seeker's mind and the information sought. This is something that I think Ra corrects as well, or talks about at least, because this is all within the depiction of the tree of mind. So before I continue, let's go to the next question. Ra says in question 28, will you please comment on the accuracy of these observations and correct any, I'm sorry, no, this is not Ra. Don says, question 29, perhaps it would be better to start the next session with the answer to this question. Would that be appropriate, or is the energy already fixed? Ra says the energy is, as always, allotted. The choice, as always, is yours. Questionnaire Don says, in that case, continue, please. Ra says, perhaps the first item which we shall address is the concept of the spirit, used as a shuttle between the roots and trunk of mind. This is a misapprehension, and we shall allow the questionnaire to consider the function of the spirit further. For in working with the mind, we are working within one complex and have not yet attempted to penetrate intelligent infinity. So here's the first correction, which actually helps to clarify a little bit more what Don said in the previous question, or 2 questions ago. The concept of the spirit used as a shuttle between the roots and the trunk of mind. There is only mind, as far as I understand, between the roots and trunk of mind. That is the misapprehension. Because the spirit is a shuttle in which the mind derives its existence. You see? And spirit, within the law of one, actually has more weight than consciousness, which is interesting, something to ponder on. That consciousness, the infinity of consciousness, is it's still sort of limited compared to the infinity of spirit. It's a deep conversation, but just to mention here, because they're talking about the spirit as being something that is beyond, the reaches of understanding. So, and we shall allow the questioner to consider the function of the spirit further. Yes. For in working with the mind, we are working within one complex and have not yet attempted to penetrate intelligent infinity. With the mind, you don't penetrate intelligent infinity. That's why the mind surrenders. And then you allow yourself to dissolve into pure consciousness, which is really the portal, if you will, to intelligent infinity. 6 to 7 density there, or 6 to 7 chakra, if you want to use our system in third density. Holographic nature of the self. So that is the first correction that they make. It's not the mind that is doing the work of contacting intelligent infinities, the surrendering of the mind. But the mind does work its way up or in through the roots of the mind, all the way to cosmic mind, into understanding this. And I think this is where a lot of people get lost and say, I met God. Well, you met an aspect of God. You can never meet God itself, because you wouldn't be able to talk about it. And even when you say, I can't explain this, well, that's just an aspect of God. Sorry, that's just a limitation of not being able to see your eye with your own eye. So Ross says, it is well said that archetypes are portions of the one infinite creator, or aspects of its face. It is, however, far better to realize that the archetypes, while constant in the complex of generative energies offered, do not give the same yield of these complexes to any two seekers. Each seeker will experience each archetype in the characteristics within the complex of the archetype, which are most important to it. So another distinction here is that, well, as Ross says, okay, yeah, the archetypes, it's well to say that the archetypes are portions of the one infinite creator, or aspects of its face. You see, all you see is consciousness. All you see is the creator. So anything that you perceive as a constant is an aspect of the one infinite creator, in which it uses that particular configuration of energy to see itself. So that's what they say, that it's better to realize that the archetypes, while constant in the complex of generative energies offer, meaning that while they are constant in the way that, say, death is constant for everybody, it's a constant. Everybody will go through death. However, the transformation in which we go through after death is completely independent to the mind-body-spirit complex. That's why they say they do not give the same yield of these complexes to any two seekers, the archetypes. Each seeker will experience each archetype in the characteristics within the complex of the archetype which are most important to it. So each seeker will have to experience each archetype in a very specific way. Well, that's the nature of having diversity, isn't it? So this is the configuration of mind, archetypical mind, for us to have, obviously, you and me. So we can actually, there could be a me talking to you. How cool is that? You ever thought about that? That I can actually talk to you. Ponder that question and you will find the answer of the whole universe. How is it possible that I can talk to you? Aren't we the same? Why would I have to talk to you? Aren't we unity? What's going on here? Archetypical mind doing its own thing. Alright, so the last part where they say, an example of this would be the observation of the questionnaire that the fool is described in such and such a way. One great aspect of this archetype is the aspect of faith, the walking into space without regard for what is to come next. This is, of course, foolish, but is part of the characteristic of the spiritual neophyte. That this aspect was not seen may be pondered by the questionnaire. Lastly, they say, at this time we shall again request that the query be restated at the next working, and we shall at this time cease using this instrument. Before we leave, may we ask if there may be any short questions. This is, of course, the last question before they say Adonai, and they say the alignments are appreciated for their careful placement. Of course they are, because they talked about the archetypes, right? So they're happy about that. But yeah, all is well. Continue, my friends, in the strength of harmony, love, and light. I leave you now, my friends, in the glory of the love and the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite creator. Adonai. So even that last statement, which is repetitive, has so much value. You see, so much value into showing that. No, I won't get into it. It's too much. Let me finish up with this example that I gave about the observation. You see, every one of us interpret the Tarot in a different way. That's the point of it, right? Just show us how we understand and learn. So when you present this to any master, to any teacher, they may tell you, yes, this makes sense this way. This is how it is. I talked about it in this way. And you can see that it's always the same information. So the Fool is described in such a way in your interpretation, says the Ra. One great aspect of this archetype is that it has faith. And the aspect of faith is that you just walk blindly. You just trust your life. You trust the universe, if you will. And so Ra says this is foolish, but it's part of the characteristic of the spiritual neophyte. So you see, even here we can see that the Fool is the one that, yes, goes into the adventure of separation. Now, what is the purpose of the Fool? To find itself, you see, and realize that what it has been exploring is the self. So, for you to do this, when you're dazzled in the illusion of separation, you're shocked with everything that's happening around you, and you feel this ego self, I am me, this localized body. When you do this, you are going into the adventure of the Fool. But as you come out, or start to come out of the foolish perspective of life, then you see that, oh, all I'm doing is seeing myself. This is the great realization, the great finding, the end of seeking, is that you realize who you are. You are one with everything. And so all you have been living is your own mind. But you had to start from a very minute part of the creation for it to be worth the candle. That's what you do. That's the path of the Fool. So the Fool is each and every one of us in our different configurations, because thanks to these different configurations, the one self that exists can experience itself in an infinite array of possibilities. That is the whole point. The study of the archetypical mind, body and spirit, which we didn't get complete. The raw contact ended before it was complete, let me say so. And I don't think it would have been complete. I don't know, maybe we could have gotten a good idea, but that's because it's a study, and you have to interpret it yourself. So a lot of people have tried, and I think they have really good ways of doing it. You may find some people on YouTube. You may not find many. I don't know. I don't go into YouTube and search for people. And like I said, I am not interested in really studying this too much. Maybe just getting a little bit of an idea of what they're talking about so I can explain it my own way. And with that, I can recommend you to study it your own way. So that's all I can do for you. This is the end of session 67. This is the end of this video. Conclusions. So what have we talked about? Talked about the archetypical mind, and more especially, the archetypical mind will be explored much more as the rest of the material unfolds. But we did explore that one sensation of being of service to others, wanting to be of service to others and not being able to. So that's something to think about, to ponder upon, and really questioning, do we want to help other people And if we want to help other people, how can we do it without infringing their free will? Also, by not depleting ourselves in our martyrdom of wanting to help others by giving too much of us. All these things need to be questioned by the self for the self, because that will allow you to have more energy for your life experience and not so much for your mind to keep wondering what it needs to do next. Did I do enough? All of this. But this is something that, again, you have to experience and live within yourself. All right, this is the time where I make my ad about my course in Living the Law of One, which is available in the description. You can go check it out. I would love for you to do it because it's taken the mystical aspect of the Law of One through the direct path of understanding who is the creator within you. Why is it that you're one with everything? Why is it that you are a separate self? You feel a separate self. What is this madness? You are one, yet you feel separate. Well, guess what? You don't need to have any complex understanding of metaphysics, not even any understanding of metaphysics for this course. This course, I take you through your own experience, things you can corroborate right now, at any moment. It could be a kid, it could be a child who can do this. It doesn't require any understanding or prior knowledge. That's why I'm so excited to teach this personally and indirectly through my course. If you're interested in working with me, I'll leave a calendar down here in which you can schedule a call, and I would love to work with you with this teaching of mine, which, again, to give credit, is derived from the direct path. Ramana Maharshi, one of my biggest teachers, is Rupert Spira. You may know him, you may not know him. His teacher, Francis Lucille, Frenchman, all Westerners. And we take non-duality to a different level. So that's it. That's all I got for today. Thank you so much for being part of this. Remember, in the description, you can check the links for this work with me. I love you. I have nothing else to say, but I'll see you in session 68. Until then.